All right, everybody, welcome back to another deep dive. You guys sent in a ton of Reddit comments, and, well, let's just say we're going to be talking about daddy issues.
Ah, yeah. And not the woman's daddy issues either.
Exactly. So this poor guy, he's with this woman who loves calling him daddy in the bedroom,
Uh-huh.
but he is just not into it.
Nope.
And, of course, Reddit had a lot to say about it,
You always
a
do.
lot of opinions, some advice, and some really interesting takes on the whole thing. So,
It's interesting because the word daddy can be so loaded, especially when it comes to the bedroom.
right.
But it's important to remember that in this context, we're not talking about a literal father figure.
Okay. So, not dear old dad.
Not at all. It's more about tapping into a dynamic of dominance and submission,
Hmm.
where the woman is choosing to relinquish control and kind of surrender to her partner.
So it's more like powerful protector than father figure.
Exactly. And I think it's helpful to think about it from an evolutionary psychology perspective.
Yeah.
For centuries, women have sought partners who could provide security and protection. So for some women, the word daddy might subconsciously evoke those feelings of safety and surrender, creating a sense of excitement and release.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, we have people who are just completely creeped out by the whole daddy thing.
Yeah.
Like there's this one guy who said it straight up gives him incest vibes,
Yeah.
and it's a huge turnoff for him.
And that's totally valid. For many people, daddy is so deeply intertwined with childhood and family that using it in a sexual context just feels wrong.
Taboo.
Exactly.
Definitely taboo.
Plus, let's not forget our listener who sent in those Reddit comments. His girlfriend literally has daddy in her phone contacts for her actual father.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that definitely complicates things.
Right. So no wonder he's having a hard time separating those associations.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It really highlights how our individual experiences shape our perceptions of language.
Well,
What might be hot for one person
yeah.
could be a total buzzkill for another.
Totally.
Yeah.
And some people were comparing it to calling a woman baby during sex.
Uh-huh.
Like, it's not meant to be literal, right? Right. It's about creating a certain dynamic, a playful power exchange.
So how do we help our listener navigate this whole situation? He wants to please his girlfriend, but he just can't get past the word daddy. What are his options?
Well, the first step is for him to really explore the root of his discomfort. Is it the word itself? Or is it the power dynamic that makes him uncomfortable?
Okay, so figuring out what's really bugging him.
Exactly. Once he understands his own feelings, then he can start to figure out what to do about it.
Maybe he's totally into the dominant submissive thing, but he just needs a different word to unlock that fantasy.
Exactly. And thankfully, Reddit came through with a bunch of alternative suggestions.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Well, some people suggested sir or master,
Okay.
while others got creative with fictional character roles or even scenarios like cop and criminal.
Interesting. So basically, find a word or phrase that captures the same energy and excitement without triggering those negative associations.
Exactly. And you know what's crucial in all of this?
What's that?
Communication.
Oh,
Our listener needs to have an open and honest conversation with his girlfriend about what feels good and what doesn't.
for sure.
Yeah.
He can't just suffer in silence and hope it goes away.
Exactly. And she needs to be respectful of his feelings. Even if she doesn't fully understand them, it's about finding a compromise that works for both of them.
Right. A healthy sexual relationship is built on trust and open communication.
Absolutely. It's about feeling safe enough to express your desires and boundaries without fear of judgment.
Totally. So we've established that communication is key. But there's clearly more to unpack here. This whole daddy thing seems to tap into some deep-seated psychological desires and anxieties.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot more going on beneath the surface, and that's where things start to get really interesting.
Ooh, I like where this is going.
Yeah.
So let's take a deeper dive into those psychological nuances after a quick break.
Sounds good. All right, so we're back, and we were talking about how this whole daddy thing can really tap into some deep psychological stuff.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on in people's heads when they use this word?
Well, I noticed some really interesting patterns in those Reddit comments.
Mm.
Like, a lot of women were saying that calling their partner daddy made them feel really empowered. Like, it was actually kind of liberating for them.
Really?
Yeah. They talked about how it made them feel safe enough to just completely surrender to their partner. Like, they knew they were in control even though they were giving up control. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. So it's not just about wanting to be dominated, it's more about feeling secure in that surrender.
Exactly. And I think for a lot of women, those feelings of security and protection might be tied to their childhood. Like if they had a dad who was really there for them emotionally, then they might associate those positive feelings with the word daddy.
Okay, that makes sense. But then what about women who had, like, bad experiences with their fathers?
Mhm.
Wouldn't using that word just bring up all those bad memories?
Yeah. That's a really good question. And, some people on Reddit actually talked about that. They said that for some women, the whole daddy dynamic could be a way to kind of reclaim and rewrite those negative experiences. Like they're taking back control and creating a new positive association with the word.
Wow, that's pretty powerful. So it's like they're turning something that was once painful into something that's actually empowering.
Exactly. It's all about reframing those old narratives.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
And, we can't forget about the guys in all of this. Men can have daddy issues too.
Oh, absolutely. We saw tons of comments from men who just couldn't handle the word daddy. Like it made them feel all kinds of icky.
Yeah, one guy said it made him feel like he was in some creepy porno.
Yikes. That's definitely not what you want in a loving relationship.
Not at all. So I guess it all comes back to communication and understanding each other's individual experiences.
Exactly. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to intimacy. What might be hot for one person could be really unsettling for another.
So if our listener is still struggling with the word daddy, what should he do? Should he just try to power through it?
No way. He shouldn't do anything that makes him uncomfortable. The most important thing is for him to be honest with himself and with his girlfriend.
So, like, how should he bring it up to her?
He could say something like, "Hey, I really love exploring our fantasies together, but the word daddy just doesn't work for me. Can we try something else?"
Okay, that's a good start.
Yeah.
But what if she's really attached to the word daddy? What if it's like a major turn on for her?
Well, that's where things can get tricky. But remember, a healthy relationship is all about compromise. Maybe they can explore other words or phrases that capture the same energy without triggering his discomfort.
Oh, okay. So like finding a different way to tap into that dynamic.
Exactly. Or they could focus on role-playing scenarios that create a similar sense of power exchange, but without using specific words.
Like that cop and criminal idea.
Exactly. Or they could get even more creative and come up with their own secret code word, or explore nonverbal ways of communicating their desires. It's all about finding what feels authentic and enjoyable for both of them.
It's crazy how much depth there is to something as simple as a word.
It really is. It's like this little window into our deepest desires and insecurities.
For sure. So what else did those Redditors have to say about this whole daddy thing?
Well, there are a few comments that I thought were really interesting. They were talking about how the whole daddy dynamic isn't always about dominance and submission. Like it can also be about something much deeper and more nuanced.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Like what? It was like some people talking about trust and vulnerability.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Like these women were saying that calling their partner daddy was less about giving up control and more about expressing how much they trusted him.
Yeah, that's a really important point. It adds a whole new dimension to our understanding of this dynamic.
Right. It's not just about the power dynamic. It's about feeling completely safe and seen by your partner.
Yeah.
Like you trust him so much that you can just let go of everything and be your true self.
Yeah, and that vulnerability can be incredibly intimate and bonding.
Yeah.
It creates a space where you can really let your guard down and experience a deeper level of emotional connection.
Wow. I never thought about it that way before.
It's amazing, right? There's so much more to these words than we realize at first glance.
So what advice would you give to our listener who's still struggling with this whole daddy thing?
Well, I think the most important thing is to remember that there's no right or wrong answer here. It's all about finding what works for him and his girlfriend.
Right.
If he's not comfortable with the word daddy, then he needs to be honest about that.
Yeah.
But he also needs to be open to understanding why his girlfriend likes it.
Okay.
And maybe through that conversation, they can find a new word or phrase that works for both of them. Or maybe they'll realize that it's not about the word at all, but about the feeling it represents. It's about finding a way to express their desires and create a dynamic that feels both exciting and safe for both partners. And if they're having trouble figuring this out on their own, there's no shame in talking to a therapist or counselor.
Yeah, that's a good point. Sometimes it helps to have a neutral third party to help you navigate those tough conversations.
Exactly.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm really struck by how much those Reddit comments taught us.
Me too.
It's amazing how a simple question can lead to such a complex and nuanced discussion.
And it just goes to show that even the most taboo topics can be explored with respect and open-mindedness.
Yeah, for sure.
And hopefully this conversation will inspire some of our listeners to have their own deep dives with their partners.
That would be awesome. Because at the end of the day, honest and open communication is the foundation of any healthy relationship.
Nick said it. And that goes for both inside and outside the bedroom.
So to all our listeners out there, keep those conversations going. Keep exploring and keep diving deep. And hey, if you enjoyed this deep dive, be sure to subscribe to the Shauna Palaj YouTube channel for more thought-provoking content like this.
And don't forget to check out our podcast, Voices of the Soul, where we go even deeper into the human experience.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. We'll see you next time.